as well. They have joined us to help us shape and think about well-being, but also some subject matters that Kiri has also been thinking about. And so we're going to get her to introduce herself and some of the things that has been on her mind, and also some of the experiences that she can share with us as well. And so look, we're all looking forward to that. And so on behalf of everyone here on the virtual Poari and some of the Māori businesses, Kiri, big welcome to you. Thank you for coming along and making this a little bit more balanced in terms of gender. I hate for this just to be a whole lot of Māori males talking to each other. Couldn't think of anything worse. And also to Tuari, thank you for coming along again today. Tuari, thank you for joining us. My name is Jason Fox. I'm an HTK advisor here, and I get to facilitate our session. So welcome all. Going to ask Vaughan to introduce himself, and then to Pete, and then I'm going to circle back to Johnny and Vern to do some housekeeping, and then bring on our guests. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks, Jason. Kia ora to you, Kiri. Good to see you again. And Vaughan Winiata toka ingoa to those that haven't seen me before. One of the advisors with the HTK team, sitting here in Parnell in the Tamaki, or locked up here in Parnell in the Tamaki. Me, just brief background, started off in Japanese corporate, spent 20 years in that. Finished in 2007. That was Fujifilm, Sony, 9 years in Japan. Owned my own small business for 10 years, importing and distributing a Japanese brand in New Zealand. And sold that in 2017 when my marriage ended. And as with a lot of small businesses, these things happen. And that actually jettisoned me into the greater zeitgeist of small business advisory, sort of understanding some of the pitfalls that happen. So now I'm in the business of giving advice on all the things that I never did when I was a small business owner. So really looking forward and being part of this, and particularly in the Māori small business community. So yeah, kia ora, everybody.
Thanks, Vaughan. Kia ora, Pete.
Kia ora, whānau. Pete, currently living in Auckland, Devonport. We're locked down, but it's, is what it is, so we've just got to do our part. I started off in small businesses and parts of holding companies and all sorts of things. I eventually got headhunted by our largest competitor, and my corporate career path moved from there, from New Zealand to Australia and to Southeast Asia. It was quite an experience, and I was just lucky that I had a supportive family, as I would never have got this far without them. We came back about 4 years ago, and we're loving being back, and I'm loving being part of this crew and advising small businesses in the Māori community. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Hey, kia ora, Johnny.
Kia ora whānau, ko Johnny Aranga taku ingoa, ko Ngai Tahu taku iwi, no Oto tai ahau. Yeah, I'm Johnny, whānau enterprise advisor for HTK Group. Just want to welcome you all to this space. It's really cool to have Tuari back and Kiri as a guest as well. So yeah, looking forward to the session. Kia ora.
Kia ora e te whānau, ko Vern Holden toku ingoa, one of the HTK advisors. Just loving being part of this session and panel. It's really good to have this network, and where people can jump in and talk about some things that are on their mind, like being a business owner or in the small business community. It can be a lonely thing, so it's great to have a network where you can share some thoughts or listen in and just see what else is going on in the community.
Kapai, thanks, Vern. Okay, kia ora tātou. So we're here today. We're talking about well-being. We've got our guests in, Kiri and Tuari, to lead some of that conversation. So I really want to put a big mihi out to them both and thank them for all their mahi that they're doing out in the community, the work that they're doing with whānau before we even start. And so on behalf of us that are either directly or indirectly involved with our own whānau and communities, just want to put a big shout out to you both and thank you for doing the mahi that you're doing. And so we're going to introduce Kiri to first and get her to tell us a little bit about who and where she's from. And so on behalf of us, Kiri, nā manaki tangi ki a koe. Ka koe.
Nei rā tumihi maiha ki a koutou katoa, ko Ngai Tahu me mua upuku ngā iwi, ngā te kuri me irikihu nā hapu ki Ngai Tahu. Ko ngā te pāriri, te hapu ki mua upuku, ko Lois Williams ki pāpā, i whanga ia ki te whānau waho, ko Taukiri Manawa Tū, ko Kuhua Tāne, ko Te Koha, tātou ko Te Maia, ko Avatar, a ko Tamariki, ko Kiri Williams, ko Te Ingoa. So I am super privileged to be amongst you guys today. I hope I can bring some valuable information that you can use in your business. And I want to say thank you for that Facebook post for profiling there this morning. Would you like Tuari to be introduced first, or do you
Yeah, that might be nice.
Yep.
But otherwise, you'll stay quiet for half an hour. That'll be nice, and then we'll come straight back to you, Kiri. Ka pai. Kia ora tū.
Awesome.
Kia ora koe te whānau, kua hau tēnei te tahi mō kai mai te wahi tapu o ngā tuiru I tonu. Anō rere kia koe te ngā tohunga, ngā kaiwhakaora, ngā matikite, ngā maia, tēnā koutou. In essence, I've been on for the last couple of weeks and I've been really enjoying the opportunity to hear the kōrero that's gone on. I'm really looking forward to Kiri's kōrero this morning. And I don't think to be honest, Kiri, I don't think your profile does you justice. So I'm not going to rib it on too much. I'm gonna step back, get out of the way, and let you work your magic. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kiri.
All right. Well, I think what I wanted to start with today was the Facebook post and start talking about self-belief and how self-belief falls into business. So there's a quote from Henry Ford that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right. So when I first read the Facebook post profiling myself, I thought, crap, like that was super built up. What if I'm boring? And the fear set in. So I had to ask myself, what is fear? So fictional events appearing real. So far, it's not a fact yet. And I can get on with what I want to share with anyone that's on the video today. My second thought was imposter alert. Did I actually do any of that stuff that was in the profile? So I went looking for backup to confirm my imposter syndrome. I sent a message to a friend, and I also asked my partner to check. But I wanted to think about why I would go and do that. So why would I do that when I already know what the answer is? The answer is yes. Yes, I've already done those things, and definitely not on my own. But I had. And so I wanted to ask the team of us why you think it's important to have self-belief before I give my version of why I think it's important to have self-belief in business.
Ka pai. So that's the partai that's put. Why is it important to have self-belief? What is it that might get us up in the morning? What is it that keeps us fearful? What is it that might be the juice in life in order to get through the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes, the next hour? What is the things that has to be in our mind or we're thinking of in order to have a certain belief? And I'm going to sort of restate that. That's the question for us to have a think about. And I'm sure people who come online, they'll have their own ideas about what gets them up in the morning. And I know Tuari will have his own ideas about that. Vaughan has also got this wonderful, we call it the Zoolander face, the blue steel face that pumps him up in the morning when he looks in the mirror. But we've all going to have our superpowers to do that. So we just open that question up and pass it to Tu. He'll also have a whakaaro about, what is this thing called self-belief?
Oh, kia ora, Kiri, and that's a beautiful whakaaro. And I think sometimes the trick is when we talk about self-belief and imposter syndrome and all these sort of things, we're trained in a lot of ways to think less of ourselves. And I think the trick sometimes becomes it's not thinking less of ourselves, but it's thinking about ourselves less. And finding ways and thinking about ourselves in ways that don't diminish ourselves. A lot of the time, the difficult part is to get out of our own way, but the narrative that we've grown up with and that we've embraced. We talked a couple of weeks ago about, the rules. We talk about kaupapa and we talk about standards of practice and operating procedures and all these sort of things. But we talked about the 4 qualities that we hold dear as a human. If you had to talk about the 4 qualities that you would like to put forth in terms of your humanity, what would they be? And I think that my thought on your question, and your excellent question, is that I think it's important if you're going to do the thing that you're called to do, and realizing that you're the only person that can do the thing that you're called to do, the thing you're supposed to do. Like Vaughan, you talked about it, and I reflected on a couple of weeks ago. You talked about the reason that people are in the business for themselves a lot of times is because you have such a rare and individual way of looking at the world, and that allows you to look at things in myriad different ways, and to attack it and to create so many different approaches and ways of being of service. So long way around, I think the trick of believing in ourselves is the trick of believing in ourselves, and then from there things flow. I think if we believe in ourselves and we call ourselves, I believe in myself as a businessman, or I believe in myself as a sports person, or I believe in myself, and you put some kind of tag or title on it, then it's kind of this kōrero that we can take on and off. I suppose for me, I would first believe in myself in terms of being Māori, and the power and the mana and the integrity and the authenticity of that. And then I would hope that sort of my values would flow from that in a way that impacts the way that I choose to serve and work with other people. The vulnerability that I show, and hopefully the authenticity, and sometimes being authentic is being able to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, and actually being able to admit mistakes and not have to have all the answers, and to realize there's strength in that. So I think that it boils down to, it's not about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. That would be my whakaaro on that. I'll yield to everyone else.
Ka pai. So when I'm thinking about that question, and when I'm thinking about self-belief, I put aside past and future. I try to block out everything that I was a minute ago and everything I need to be in 10 minutes. And I try to be here right now. And so in that moment, my belief is only in the present. And I sort of call that out because I think it helps me anyway, remove all of my insecurities or mistakes that I've done previously, and removes the anxiety of everything I've got to do tomorrow, and puts me in a place where I can hear even myself for that moment. And so that's certainly something that I've used quite a bit to try and get really great clarity on self-belief and purpose and present. Anyway, Vaughan's got his hand up, so we'll push it to Vaughan, and then we'll come back to Kiri, because I'm sure she's got something to add here. Still, mic's on though.
Kia ora, Jace. You just triggered something that I recall, and I think that transitioning out of a larger organisation or corporate into small business ownership, and look, this is the truth for the 530,000 small businesses in New Zealand. Most of us ended up owning them by accident. We didn't go, I'm going to be the unicorn entrepreneur, and we have this startup venture capital angel investor plan. It just kind of happened. And the reality is we go in any one day from euphoria to despair in an hour, because when you come out of an organization, you can spread all those emotions across teams, but you're it. You are it. And this is how I think the dotted line through to that blurry area between your well-being and the business well-being becoming one and the same, and that ability to be able to see the difference between the two. So yeah, guys, and also your first kōrero, Tuari, around resilience, that's when it's tested. But when knowing how that, it's okay for despair and it's okay for euphoria. So that's all, bro. Good.
Ka pai, Kiri.
Right. So those are all amazing and beautiful examples of self-belief and why you should grow it. My whakaaro on it is, your business can only grow as much as you do. So we need to learn how to believe in ourselves before our business can grow. If we don't have the groundwork laid personally, how will our business flow? how will it be order if we're not building and growing the essence of who we are? Our business will be stuck at whatever level we're at. So what I do as practical steps to try to build my self-belief is I do it through like small and consistent actions. And so hopefully these are things that everyone else can take away from today. I do what I say. So like today, I turned up, I didn't make up an emergency of why I couldn't make it because I was too scared to do it. Every year I set a vision board and I set it at the financial year, not the 1st of January. And I have a word for the year. So last year, my word was yes. So whenever there was an opportunity, even if it didn't sound like it fit for me, I had to say yes to go with my yes word. And it threw me into the most amazing experiences and networking opportunities, just because I chose that word. And now that I'm out of that financial year, I can still say yes to build that self-confidence in me, because each time I do it, I feel like I'm growing. So when there was the opportunity to come on here, most of the time I would just say no, but I can say yes now. And for out of interest, this year's word is winner. Does anybody else do that? Does anyone else do a vision board or have something for the year to help them grow?
Kia ora, good parts like that. So we're talking about our own visions. We've got Kiri and Tuari in today, and we're talking about what we do on a day-to-day basis to have self-belief, and we're asking sort of some questions about does anyone have their own vision board? What do people do out there to sort of get themselves thinking not just about the present but also the future as well, or the past? And what are people doing in terms of setting that wider vision for themselves? We've had a beautiful description too on yes. Yes opens a lot of doors. You know, it does. You can leave all of your past judgments about things and people and others and just cut through all of that with a yes. And it's a wonderful word. And it's helpful for Kiri to sort of remind us about that and not get stuck in our little rooms in Parnell thinking that the world's going to come to us or something like that, but certainly being a bit more open to that wider energy around us. So yeah, let's have a talk about people's visions. Let's get something from Tuari. How do you build your vision too in terms of your thinking about the year? Are you that forward in terms of planning?
Gosh, you know what, Kiri, I have to be honest and say that I wish that I did something as cool as that, because that is such a cool, motivated thing to do. And I'm sitting here hard going, rack your brain for something that sounds cool. No, I don't, is a short answer in terms of doing that. But what I do is you'll see you can see my diary, which is an interesting color here. And I call it a spell book. I don't know if you can read that, but Tuari's spell book, it might come up backwards on the thing. Anyway, the reason I call it a spell book is because I find when I write things down, almost like magic, they happen. If I write a goal and I have a set of daily things that I'm going to do, weekly or monthly things, and they're there in black and white, there's a level of accountability that I have. I think it's also really important if you're setting those goals to be really specific. Like, you're talking to someone and they sort of they're talking maybe going to the gym, or they're going to lose weight, or they're going to quit smoking, or whatever it is. And it's just kind of this thing where people say, you say to them, so what's your goal? And they go, quit smoking. And good, when you're going to do that? Sometime this year. And going, well, okay. So sometime this year, is it in the first part or the second part of the year? And they go, well, the first part. And you go, well, okay, so it's in the first part. So out of those 6 months, what's the month? And they go, February. And I'm going, okay, so February. And it's this thing of finding down to, so you're going to give up you try and get them down to 2 o'clock on the 16th of February. It's really important to find that goal down, because what I like about what you're saying, Kiri, too, is that sometimes we create these massive kind of taumata that we can't reach because they are somewhere out there in the stratosphere and they're not specific, and we don't have something that we can clearly see or clearly define or follow a path. So I think it's important to create some kind of metric and some kind of accountability in terms of doing that. And I think it's what's so cool doing it on the financial year, as opposed to the 1st of January. I mean, you think about the number of people, all of us here have set New Year's, what do you call them? What are they called?
Resolutions.
New Year's resolutions. Okay, I think with the resolution is like when you write something on a whiteboard, generally it stays on the whiteboard and not in your head. And so, like, I think for me, Kiri, I think that having daily goals is something which really works for me. I don't know what else works for everyone else, but I really applaud, and I think it's a really courageous thing, because obviously you're giving yourself, you're burning the bridges, as they say. That was a thing we talked about a while back, and that the Spartans, one of the things that made the Spartans such a formidable fighting people was as they advanced through enemy territory, first they would burn their boats on the beach, and then they would burn the bridges. So they had no way to go back. The only way was forward. So to me, Kiri, that sounds like you've pulled some wok up on the beach, and you've just burnt it out and just gone, right, off we go.
I love your kōrero about not setting the goal too far away. I think it is important that we have those aspirations and those big ones for the year, but the only way you're going to get that and hold yourself accountable is by building momentum, so setting smaller goals. So I just started with when my kids were like, can I have this? And I'm like, oh, I usually say no. Actually, I'll just try and say yes. And I did, and then it got bigger and bigger until you're saying yes to things you never would have imagined doing. So yeah, building momentum keeps you hungry for those goals, but making sure they're always visible. And when you build momentum and you start picking them off, don't forget to pick them off, because that is what builds your self-belief and your self-confidence. You're like, oh my God, I can do this.
Yeah, it's a very cool observation there. So, you know, like when we have yeses for ourselves, but sometimes we can make the mistake of using our own yeses for other people, or our own no's for other people, like our children, our friends, our colleagues, our, you know, our mighty businesses, which is, oh, well, I didn't do that, so therefore you shouldn't. Actually, that's lies, isn't it? It's like, well, I'm limiting everyone else around me by my own yes or no. And I've got to be brutally aware of that. I've got to be aware that if I'm negative towards your, you know, my son's desire to have a skateboard or whatever, that could crush that moment. And so we've got to be just as careful about our own yes or no's and how that might affect everyone else around us. And one of the sort of constant words I've heard used to describe business advisors is sometimes they can be dream stealers. You know, people have their own visions about things, and if you come in the room with your own no's, you could end up stealing their own dreams, and that would be the worst outcome. I've got Vaughan, he's got his hand up, so
I'm back. Yeah, hey, Kiri, I really appreciate you mentioning, you know, the storyboard, and I think that for me, I completely took that the vision of having that sound castle in the air, that sort of thing that you visualize that you're striving for. And I think drawing on my Japanese corporate experience about that kaizen, you know, that continuous improvement, you may never get there, but you are working on a process to just improve in incremental little shifts. Look, I'm big on visuals, and most people that tune in to me will see that around me I'm always using words like Ngāti Huia or tōteka or something, because behind those words there's other stuff that how I actually got to embrace it. So I think visualizing is a massive thing. To my left, I've got a 7-foot blackboard, which is my whole whakapapa, you know, taking through. And what I want that to do is be looking over what I do for work, because what I want to do for work has to be synchronized with how I live and what I am. And, you know, when we get to engage at HTK with real Māori businesses that aren't in it for the money, they're actually in it for who they are, their identity. Sure, you've got to make a buck to eat and all that sort of stuff, but that's not why we started our businesses. And just to finish, like on my desk here, here's an example. It's a little cheap K market, light box. So this is Punawai, Waipuna, and Toteka. So Punawai is Wellspring. So that's where I go to my Taranga Waiwai. I try to go there 1 week in every month, meet with the people that I need to meet to talk, to ground. And the Waipuna is the spring water I take away from the wellspring, the knowledge I pick up each time. So I know when I need the replenishment to go back to the Punawai. And honestly, you know when you feel it, I've got to get in my truck and drive that 550 bloody kilometres down to Hokiua Beach, hang around for a week and go and see everybody so no one gets upset that you didn't go and see them, and come back and all of a sudden I'm a lighter and feeling great. So, really, really appreciate you bringing that up. Kia ora.
Kia ora, boy. Kia ora, Pete. Pete's got a partai too, or something to contribute.
Yeah, really good stuff. I'm a firm believer in self-belief, and I feel if you don't have it as a leader, other people can sense it. I think if you have very strong self-belief, people are aware of that. You may not always be wrong, but if you're but if you have a really strong sense of self-belief, the mistakes you make won't matter, because the people are confident that your belief system is going to lift them as well. I'm a planner. I don't write stuff down, but I've sort of segmented stuff through my life and career where I think it should be. One thing I would say from a point of view is to keep having adventures. I find as we get older, or as we move through our life, we tend to have more adventures when we're younger and less when we're older. And it's not about having a big adventure or a big trip or something. The adventure can be small, but just have an adventure, do something that's a little bit different, or maybe takes you out of your comfort zone, but just have an adventure. The next thing I would say is, we talk about reward and recognition, and through my corporate career, we had some pretty big bonuses in that corporate stuff, as you know, and what I found was good for my own state of mind or mental health was to reward yourself. And the first thing I did when I got a big bonus was bought myself a watch, and every day I looked at that watch, it reminded me that no matter how bad my day was, hey, I earned that watch. Later on, the prize got a bit bigger, and now I've got a big motorbike, but that's another story. But you've got to reward yourself along the way.
Really cool point there, Pete, and I'm sure Kiri and Tuari are going to feed on that, which is the reward doesn't have to come at the end of the rainbow. There are these moments that have great gratitude, and to sort of stop and just be in the moment of that. And to others, it might just seem weird that you're celebrating, these small incremental little wins that you have. But actually, you really need it for your well-being. So, yeah, thanks, Pete, for calling that out. I think that's a really good observation about us. I mean, we like to win, don't we? We like the feeling of winning. We're sort of built this way. We've grown up that way. We've been sort of learned through sports the idea of competing and winning, and the joy of that. But actually in business, you don't have these great winning moments all the time, and so you've got to sustain yourself between now and the winning moment. And so I'll pass that back to Kiri and Tuari about how they're thinking about winning, and is it winning, or rewarding yourself for these small incremental gains, and how you've been thinking about that too.
Oh, am I still on? Sorry,
Yes.
My internet. When I talk about, we used to reward ourselves, but we changed our thinking into embracing challenges and growing. So I say this because my partner has a business too. So he owns a merchandise and apparel company, and he also makes Pew Pew, and he has a retail store. He's got 3 staff, and then I also have my company that I do consulting for and contract to places like Te Pūtaitanga or Ngai Tahu. And then we also have our family, and it takes a lot of time. And if you ask my kids, they'll think they are the most hard done by kids in the world. But we're all learning to embrace the challenges and try to out business people, you'd be absolutely surprised at the customer service and things that you're up against. And especially for Māori, like, we love to give, we love to manaaki our customers in that extra way. And that's actually a superpower in your business. And so where we used to say, yeah, we just made a great sale, we're going to go and celebrate, or we're going to go out for dinner, we've kind of switched it and said, yeah, that's awesome, let's grab another one. And we're getting the kicks and the celebrations out of that kind of growth, rather than, yeah, let's go out to Macca's, or let's go out to the restaurant, let's go on holiday, because our goal on our vision board we haven't reached. So what we're doing to grow is staying uncomfortable and being real unreasonable with our goals.
Cool. That reminds me of Kale yesterday, who was big on the stoicism. Earlier this week on Monday, which was, I'm embracing large hurdles in life. I'm looking out for them. I want to go and tackle those. And as we talk about winning and how we might reward ourselves with winning, it sort of gets us to think about our old self as the competitor in the team, and that competitor is loves feeding on winning. And when we're thinking about the competitor, I've tried to describe this to my nephews and some of my children later on, is that, are we really just about thinking about winning? Is that the thing that drove us? Or actually, are we thinking about our own competence? Are we wanting to continue to build our own competence just as much, so I'm just as good on the next time round? And my observation about that was, if I potentially focused more on my competence and not on the competitor, I might have done a bit better. And I was trying to share this with the nephews, who are obviously looking at me sideways like, what the hell are you on, Uncle? But I just put that out there for you too as well, in terms of how you think about this question of winning, how you use it as juice in order to go into the next round, or to get sustenance from it. Or in fact, whether it's even winning at all.
That's good kōrero. Sorry, yoga, Kiri. Thank you, please.
It just reminded me of a cool quote, and it goes, winning is more fun than having fun is fun. And so it's something like that. There's like this process of winning is way more fun than going out and having fun when you get there. But you got to get there first. I probably botched that quote.
No, it's good. We got the vibe of it. So you were going to say?
Sounds perfect to me. Yeah, I think that for me, when we talk about sort of winning, I think one of the biggest hurdles is creating the idea that you're worthy of winning. And I think it's something that I know for me, for a long time in my life, I kind of looked at the things that had happened in my life as happy kind of accidents, as things that I really on some level didn't deserve, or that someone was going to come along, was going to turn up and say, actually take it back, because for some reason they looked at their books and found that it was all a big joke. And so what I tended to do when I had wins, I found really incredibly ridiculous ways to sabotage that on some level. And maybe it was things that I said, maybe it was things that I did. Certainly it was the way that I thought about myself. And I think something that resonates with what you're talking, Kiri, is the notion, firstly, of believing that we are worthy of winning. I know there's a lot of our people, and a lot of the men in the whānau that I work with now, we have this belief, and I don't want to call it a ghetto mentality, because I think that that's not the right term, but I think there's a belief that the language we tell ourselves and the language that the world tells us, from an early age. I mean, where did we see brown faces on television? We all had to have that joke about Crime Watch and the court news, and the only brown faces I saw on TV was some weather woman or something like that. It's understanding that we have a place to take, that we have a seat at the table that is only ours, and is waiting there for us to grab it. And I really go back to your initial kōrero, Kiri, in saying that, you know, understanding that we have something really unique and wonderful to put forward. Now, you're talking about what you and your husband are doing and almost delighting in the challenge and leaning into the discomfort. And I know for me, it can be something like doing cold water showers, or, you know, like you, Jace, doing bench press underwater, or whatever it is. You know, but the most important thing is that we sort of we take an internal journey, and sometimes that can be a long and painful thing. You know, Vaughan, you were talking about, you've been really upfront with some of, you know, the things that you've been through. And I think sometimes we have to go through, you know, so Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is a terrifying thing, because it's about coming through the crucible of being really uncomfortable, being really scarred, and all the rest of that. But I think ultimately it's about getting more self-knowledge. And I think nothing is more true of that than when you're working in business. And the notion that you're creating a brand, and the brand really is you. The brand really is me. When people are doing business, particularly Māori people, they're not asking what you do. They're asking, who are you, and how do I connect with you? And that's the essence of tikanga as well. Understanding where we're from and how we connect. Like, Kiri, I know I'm waffling a little bit, but I think of some of your whānau up there in Kaikoura. In particular, I think of where Whale Watch started, with the Manawatu whānau, the Solomon whānau, the Kahu whānau, all those wonderful whānau that got together and saw something amazing in the notion of taking people out to see whales. And the shit that they had to go through in order to do that, people sugaring their tanks, dropping dead dolphins on their doorsteps, punch-ups in the local bars because these Maoris were just getting out of control with their highfalutin ideas. But you look at what that's become. And I think it's a unique and wonderful example of our people pushing through and going through that hero's journey, believing that they had something to do. And now, you know, it's world-renowned top class. I remember back in the day, I used to live in South Bay, when there was those little runabouts. But now there's huge vessels in that custom-made dock in South Bay. It's amazing. And I think, to take it to its logical conclusion, Kiri, I think that's an excellent example, especially from your people, of how we can embrace a vision of ourselves bigger than what we think it is. And when we think generationally, there's a reason why we are what we are, and they are what they are, and you are what you are, and we're doing what we're doing.
Hey,
so their end of the election, amene.
No, pai ana, because the main thrust of this is it's very difficult to run a good and a great business without you being totally in the now, and you being totally cool with yourself. And you take that residual of any baggage that you might have into every part of your conversation, every commercial relationship, in every transaction. You take a lot of that baggage with you. As long as we're aware of that, acutely aware about that, it's a really good start, isn't it, Kiri? It's just a good start of going, okay, I am my business. That's why when the Māori community asks me, ko wai aho, yeah, I'm not that interested that you've got law degrees, Bachelor of Arts, MBAs. I just want to know you're a good person, and where are you from, and who are you, and will you be there when actually I really need you to reach out, and that kind of aspect about Māori business. Maybe get you to talk a little bit more about that, about who I am and why that's so important when we're thinking about not just having a business, but having a great business.
I think first everyone pushes it to the bottom, and we all get boxed as a Māori business into having to be a social enterprise or something for good, or we have to have that brand. And I think you do, but we all need to be honest with ourselves, and that we're also there to make money. It can't just be the side part. And I think that's where people get out of balance and find it hard to talk to other people and feed off other people, because everyone's trying to hide the fact that they're also trying to make a dollar. And that's the biggest struggle that I've found is, you know, it's there, but no one's having the conversation and no one wants to talk about the actual money making part. But then also making sure that the thing that leads into that money is having the strong values, but making sure they're put into practice, and it is, you are your brand. So if you've got values like, I don't know, I don't want to have plastic ever, but then McDonald's comes at you and says, yeah, I'll buy all your stuff, but it has to be wrapped in plastic. Are you going to take the deal? So, you know, what are your values that you hold core to yourself? Will that outweigh your want for money? But also not neglecting the fact that many of us start a business to not have a cap on our wages. Like, we are absolutely, the sky is your limit. The harder you work, the more that you put in. There is no income cap. I think that is an important part that's always missed out of discussions.
That's cool. I mean, this idea of we've got to have good internals, and when we're thinking about money and we think about describing that to our own communities, it's a little bit like being at school, where when you know the answer as a kid, you're sitting at the back, or you don't want to say the answer because you don't want to make it look like, hey, I'm the know-it-all, or something like that. And it's very much a similar idea in business. Oh, I don't want to talk about money because I know my whānau might not be making that kind of money. Okay, so in order for us to kind of be successful, we've been talking about having internal success of our own self and making sure we've got good well-being there. But this kind of external stuff, like being really good at creating a rich external environment around you, is actually as difficult as making sure you are good internally. Like, we shouldn't even probably bullpucky around that. That is just as hard as creating a strong internal self, because that external wealth and environment around you, that can only be created with you being solid. Otherwise, it's a bit of a mirage out there, isn't it? It's an illusion, but it's a lot more difficult than what we probably give it credit for.
Yeah, I think if we can start having those conversations and normalizing it more, the solutions will come out and people will start to share in their successes and what they do and what they don't do. You know, I would, like, when I'm mentoring somebody, no one has outright come to me and said, how much money do you make? Because you might not be the right mentor for me. Like, I'm expecting that question, and I am expecting for one day someone to say, oh no, I'm past you, I need the next person up. And I think we should all be confident enough to be able to, one, realize where we are and how much we can help, and make sure we pass on to the next people, but not being afraid to say, hey, like, have you done this? Can you actually help me? Do you understand the grit that it takes when you're rocking in the corner and you can't pay your kaimahi? How do I come up with the solutions fast? How do I tap into this? How do I tap into these networks like HTK to support me to find the solutions? Yeah, I think everyone's afraid to ask those questions.
Very cool. Very cool. So asking the hard questions and being prepared to, if you're asked the hard question, clearly to be upfront about it and be honest about it, but also realize at the same moment you don't have all the answers for them, and letting them know that, like, you know, just let them say, hey, I'm not your silver bullet, but I do X, Y, Z, and that's what I'm great at. And we had talk about this framing and things. That's really helpful. And you know, the great thing about New Zealanders and the Māori community is we can smell a pretender from a mile away. Like, we we have this innate ability to call out the bullshit, and probably one of our superpowers. Probably don't do that enough. So, what's your thoughts about calling out the self, and what happens when you know that there's a bullshit in a room? How do you respond to that? How are you gracious and giving and manaki still in that moment?
Well, there's plenty of people on this call who realise that when it comes to bullshitters in the room, that actually is usually me. So, I mean, it's sort of an interesting.
Get out of the way. Get out of the way, bro. I own that.
No, mate. I'm a 10th dan black belt and that stuff, bro. It's good. It's good that you're giving it a shot. But I've had a long practice at it, mate. Long practice. I worked hard. I think that, like you say, one of the superpowers of our people is that we can smell bullshit and we can see a lack of authenticity. The thing which I want to sort of pick on what Kiri was talking about was really the power of our vulnerability. Now, I think when you're in a role of leadership, you can't get into deep, dark secrets, but you can say, I don't know, I'm not sure, but here's what I do know. Here's what I can provide an answer to. This is what I believe into, what I believe. With a lot of the families and a lot of the fun and a lot of communities, Pacific and Māori communities I'm working with in my day-to-day, it's about feeding the kids. It's about, I can't go out and work on the roads and I haven't been working long enough to receive a subsidy. So how do I survive on the day-to-day? So the bigger question is, how do we be authentic when we're in a position where we're making choices, where we're making decisions which hold that sort of sway over people's lives? Kiri, you were talking about, your husband having that business and having employees, and with the country being in lockdown, I'm imagining that's kind of hit hard for those employees as well. But I think what brings it back to being something we can really believe in is if we go back to our tikanga, and it is about pono, it is about aroha, and understanding that those are strengths, not weaknesses. I mean, you're talking about manaki, Kiri, and I think sometimes people interpret that as being suckers. Manaki and aroha are a kick in the ass or the balls or whatever, depending on sort of the situation. It's not always about, okay, warm pats and, Ren, you are the prettiest. You're going to go to the ball. Thanks for turning up. That was awesome. But I think it's about having something tangible, and it's about being able to get beside people and have real, open, honest conversations. You don't have to have all the answers, but sometimes it's important to have a belief that that transcends the situation you're in. You've got to hold that vision. You've got to be the person that holds that vision when no one else does, and that's a hard and sometimes can be a really lonely place. So again, that's why organisations like HTK are so important, and forums like this are so important, that we can actually reach out and gain strength in numbers, because we're all sort of shoulder to the ground doing the same things. Hey, whakaaro.
Ka pai tū. Well, we've got about 3-4 minutes left, and so always going to encourage the Māori businesses and whānau to contribute. And so if you have any pārtai, Kiri or Tuari, please let us know. We've only got her for a short amount of time, so we'll give her certainly the last couple of minutes to have the last day and sort of recap and sort of reinforce really some of the things that we've been talking about over the last hour, which is, how do we have self-belief? How are we protecting ourselves? How are we being successful? How are we avoiding self-sabotage? How are we thinking about the person we are, who we are, and what are we taking into the room if we want to create an external environment that's really successful around us? I'm just sort of distinguishing between our own internal self and that large external environment that we call wealth outside of ourselves. And so, we've been talking about that today, and Kiri's been sharing her thoughts about that. And so we're going to ask her to sort of have the last word on where she's going, Pōpō, and what are the things that she's going to take into her future in 2021, 2022.
Wow. I think so. We are continuing to build on our self-belief. So just making those small changes every day. Start with getting up 1 hour earlier. That'll give you 365 free hours of whatever you need to do for the year. What we're working on is we are working on our health and our well-being. So making sure we are up early, we are having the cold showers. We've started doing like Wim Hof breathing, whole food kai, meditating. Some of you might do karakia, some of you might not be religious, but if you just set your intentions for the day of how you want that day to go, at least you've started on a positive. If I can give you some things to actually like take in for your action, set some goals, hold yourself accountable, like tell other people about them, especially with COVID and everything that's happening around you. Set like we love competition. Set a goal. Like we set how many hours, how many minutes does it take for us to solve a problem? It's a small one, like we've got no stock and we can get that down to a 15-minute problem solve. If it's we can't pay our employees, that we've got that down to about 28 hours without using the wage subsidy, because the more that we can grow those things within ourselves, the less reliable we are on external things to come and save us. So we're putting on that. We actually have a massive dream of owning a $2 million home. So currently our house is worth, I think we bought it for 180K 3 years ago. And we're staying uncomfortable until we're in a position to be able to get that dream. So we're being completely unreasonable with our dreams. What can I did want to wrap it up though. So the purpose of today was to build self-confidence. I hope that you can all go and build self-confidence, but have the conversations and share your greatness with others. So I've got a favorite quote that is from Coach Carter by Timo Cruz. Many of you probably know it and love it, but it's our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So if anything, share your self-belief and help grow everyone else's, and then everyone will just be smashing it.
It's beautiful. What a beautiful quote. Love that Coach Carter quote. That is a lovely reminder about light and dark, and to keep thinking about your light and sharing that. And that's a wonderful way to sort of close today's kōrero. I'm going to also pass it to Tuari for a last word and wrap it up with our karakia. But also the main point is you said to us, put down a goal. And if maybe part of our challenge today, Whānau, if we could put in the chat one of our goals, just again for ourselves and also for others in the HTK community, let's get a goal down there in the chat, and let's just start putting some light and putting some love into it, putting it out into the universe. So, kia ora, Kiri, thank you. We're going to come back to you. Tuari, kōrero whakamutunga.
I'm just totally inspired. Thank you, Kiri. I hope that HTK gets you back and gets you and your husband and your team on as well. I think it's really inspiring. I don't have anything to add. I just want to say thanks, Whānau, for having me, and thanks, Kiri, for bringing an awesome kōrero, and I'm really keen to hear more of it. So thank you so much. Kia ora koutou.
Okay, kia ora everybody. So we had Kiri Williams today and Tuari on to talk about well-being, but we quite quickly got to the, well, what the hell are you doing with your life? What are you actually doing with your juice? What are you doing with your self-belief? What are you doing with your courage? What are you doing with your internals? And what are you doing with your externals? And have you created a goal for yourself about the external? And so today we crossed all of those bridges, and Kiri's helped us to think about that and to be bold enough to shed some light on that thing. Put some light on it and sprinkle it with goodness and a bit of sun, and be staunch about it. Don't just let it get battered around in the wind. Don't let your brother or your sister tell you, oh, that's a load of kaka, and you might sort of shrink off to the corner again. Yeah, let's be bold about it. Let's be courageous. And Whānau, put your goals up in there. If you've got one goal, want to see it on the chat before you leave. If that's the koha we can give Kiri as a way of saying thank you for reminding me about my light and my goal. That's the one thing I can do to say thank you to Kiri and her whānau. And we're all looking forward to coming to join you in that $2 million whare. Looking forward to kai and a kōrero that Tuari will provide the puha and Vaughan a bit of pork bone, and come and join you in that that housing, that whare opening. So on behalf of us all here, Kiri, ngā manaakitanga ki a koe. Thank you for helping us stoke the fire of well-being and get us to think more just beyond our business, not just about money, not just about externals, but enjoying some of the juice of life, enjoying the moments with our kids, being mindful about our yes and no's, and making sure that when we're saying yes, we're really saying yes to everyone around us, not just ourselves, and spreading the vibe. So on behalf of HTK, yeah, thanks, Kiri, for all your time, and love to have you back. So we'll reach out to you and annoy you about that. But on behalf of us, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, kia ora hui tātou katoa. Ka pai whānau. So we're finished for Wednesday, the 8th of September. We're back tomorrow, 2 o'clock, and we've also got more guest speakers coming up on Friday. So I'm going to close with our karakia. Please put your goals up on that chat. Johnny's already got his up. I'm going to sell 100K worth of stuff. Yeah. Hey, that didn't take long. Johnny's got this great ability to sell all of his gears to guest speakers that come on the HTK virtual board. So he's worked out the formula. Ariana Paul is about to put her goal in there. I think she wants to build the biggest Māori business trust ever created. Who knows? We'll see how that unfolds. And Pete's probably going to buy a new watch. Who knows? So let's get our goals out there. And on behalf, I'm going to close with our karakia. Thank you, everybody. No reira, kua uhia mai ngā kupu kōrero ki runga i tō tātou tēpu. Kua tira marama te raiti ki runga i o tātou kōrero. I rato i runga i o tātou nākau. Me whakapua wai ki runga ki roto ki waho. Ara anō kia tipu haere tā tātou kākano. Ara anō te kākano o te nākau. Kia pua waitia, kia rere atu ki ngā rangi. Kia rere atu ki ngā kōkono o te ao. No reira, kei runga anō i e nā kōrero mihi ana. Mātou katoa kia Kiri me Tuari ki te whakatūwhera i ngā kupu kōrero o tēnā. Me ngā tāringa whakarongo e noho nei i te pai me te ipuranga e mihi mahana mātou ki a koe kia kōrua Kiri. No reira kia tau ngā manakitanga me ranga ki rungi tēnā ki tēnō tātou. Kia mahia tō mai ki kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te reo, toi ngai tātou. Turu o piti ka maua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Hamia hui e.
Tai.
Yeah.
Kia ora. Thanks, Kiri.
Kia ora.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kiri.